Stephen Hawking cause of death, funeral, wife and children as he's laid to rest in memorial service. Stephen Hawking's ashes have been interred at Westminster Abbey, 3 months on from his death. The magnificent physicist and cosmologist, whose life was depicted in 2014 movie The Theory of Everything, was 76 when he died on March 14. The Oxford native and staunch atheist asked to have the Bekenstein-Hawking entropy equation as his epitaph. Most will remember him for his work on black holes and relativity, but the scientist, who developed amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, in his 20s, also had an eventful life in the spotlight, divorcing twice and having 3 children. Here is what we know about his life and how he died. Stephen William Hawking was born on January 8, 1942 in Oxford, and he studied at St Albans in Hertfordshire. His mother was a secretary at a medical institute, hailing from a family of doctors, and his father worked at the National Institute for Medical Research. Both had gone to Oxford, and their intellect meant Hawking family life was very restrained, with mealtimes spent silently reading books at the table. Stephen got a place at University College, Oxford, where the work failed to challenge him, but he began to flourish socially for the first time, and he coxed a boat crew in the rowing society. Then he began his graduate work in cosmology at Cambridge and started work on black holes, with his first major thesis being approved in 1966. He was known to challenge the theories of his contemporaries in cosmology during public meetings. Meanwhile, he began to fall in love with his sister's friend Jane Wilde, who he had met in 1963 aged 21. Their meeting came shortly before he was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, and their love for each other got him through a dark time psychologically. Doctors had initially given Stephen just 2 years to live, but although he became less and less able to speak and move around, his condition did not progress as fast as predicted. In the meantime, he grew closer to Jane. They got engaged in October 1964 and married in July 1965. With Stephen supporting himself with a stick at the wedding. During their marriage, which lasted 30 years, they had 3 children: Robert, 51, Lucy, 48, and Tim, 39. However, his role as family man wasn't to last. By the end of the 1980s, Stephen, who spent a lot of time away from his wife due to his position in the science world, was growing attached to his nurse Elaine Mason. At this point, Jane had already developed a romantic attachment to a Hawking family friend, Jonathan Hellier-Jones, an organist she had met through a Cambridge choir. Stephen knew about it and had accepted it. The marriage was also under strain because of Jane's strong Christian faith, and Stephen's staunch atheism. Stephen divorced Jane in 1995, 5 years after departing the family home to live with Elaine, a move which had alarmed many people who knew him. The pair wed that same year, but in 2006 Hawking divorced Elaine, a few years after allegations of abuse were made against her by Lucy Hawking, who'd come to hear about her father's numerous unexplained injuries. Stephen then returned to a paternal role alongside Jane and his children after a decade of estrangement. Jane's autobiography Traveling to Infinity, My Life with Stephen was revised at this time, and eventually became The Theory of Everything, starring Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones. Stephen achieved many things in his life, as well as becoming a beacon of inspiration for the disabled community, but never got to live out his ultimate dream of making a trip into space. He was a Labour Party supporter throughout his life, was a fierce advocate of the NHS, regularly spoke out on the dangers of climate change, and was excited for the future of technological developments with AI. The genius was also adored for his wicked sense of humor and love of science fiction. Stephen's death this year was caused by the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which gradually paralyzed him over 55 years. He was cremated after a funeral in Cambridge on 31 March and then interred in Westminster Abbey, near Newton and Darwin, on 15 June, as well as there being readings by astronomer Royal Martin Rees and Nobel Prize winner Kip Thorne. Numerous celebs attended his final memorial service. More What is upskirting and what is the new law against it after Jean Martin campaign? More, get Fed. Coronation Street stars Jack P. Shepherd and Ryan Thomas. Instagram beef is everything more. EastEnders actor Leslie Grantham, a.k.a. Den Watts, dies aged 71.